All right. The topic what we are studying today is in your textbook on page number 30, the romantic imagination and national feeling. Right. We were speaking about romantic writers or playwrights. One of the first name will come in your mind would be that is William Wordsworth. We have heard Daffodils so many times. It's a nice poem. And William Wordsworth was one of these romantic poets or belongs to this romanticism. So, what we have to remember about romanticism, it is a cultural movement promoted nationalism. That's the first point. It was romanticism is a cultural movement which promoted nationalism. And second, it criticized glorification of reason and science, which was during the age of enlightenment, and instead it focused on emotions, intuitions, and mystical feeling. So, are we clear? These 2 points, if there is a short note on romanticism, these are the first 2 points you have to write. One, it is a cultural movement promoted nationalism. Second, it focused on emotions, intuitions, and mystical feeling instead of glorification of reason and science, which was during the time of Age of Enlightenment. And also, it emerged as see this picture, for example. It gives us a mystical feeling, right? There's a misty background of a forest without much leaves, and as a booginess indeed. It's like a when you look at the picture, there's just a mystical feeling, some mystery behind it. There's something behind it which you can't see. If you take a reason or science behind it, there is nothing. There may not be anything. There is no proof that there is something behind that fog or with that smoke you see there. So it is more of a feeling. It's just an example. So this this emerged as an opposition to the age of enlightenment and was a response to French cultural domination, particularly during Napoleonic War, because when Napoleon conquered all these regions, this cultural moment of enlightenment was spread, and the French was taking a dominance in major part of Europe because of Napoleon was the ruler. So this was actually a movement against, as a response to the French cultural domination. There were French artists as well who were part of this romanticism period, but in general, in Europe, it was against the cultural domination of France and opposition to age of enlightenment. That is the third point you have to remember. Again, a cultural movement to promote nationalism. Say it together with me so that you will remember it. So it was a cultural movement and promoted nationalism. It focused on emotions, intuitions, and mystical feeling instead of glorification of science and reason. It emerged as an opposition to the cultural domination of French and to the age of enlightenment, particularly during the Napoleonic Wars. So these 3 points, please do remember. This is what you may have to write. Okay, that was between 1790 to 1860. This period of romanticism is the age of romanticism is between 1790 to 1860. It's not that of important, but just for your information. Now, as I said, William Wordsworth was one of the most famous romantic artists of during romanticism, period of romanticism. There were many others. If you take case of England, there were Shelley, Keats, and Lord Byron. They all were artists of or writers or during the romantic period. They followed the romantic style, which was, again I said, dealing with the feelings or with the mind. In France, There were people like Victor Hugo, Eugene de la Cruz. Victor Hugo, I don't know whether you know Victor Hugo. He was one of his famous book is Hunchback of Notre Dame, and another one is Les Miserables, the Poor. These are two beautiful novels. If you get a chance, don't miss it. That exactly depicts what was the social atmosphere in France or in Europe during that time. Both are big books. If you get a summarized version, it is more good for you, because once you read it, if you like it, go for the bigger version. Otherwise, it is a huge book, especially Les Miserables, the Poor. In Malayalam, I think it was translated as Pavangal. So Victor Hugo, another big personality in literature. So Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, Byron, and in France it was Victor Hugo. Another one is Eugene Delacroix. Eugene Delacroix, there is a picture of Eugene Delacroix, means one of his painting on page 14. He was an artist, he was a painter. His painting actually depicts the sorrow and suffering of women and children um, at the massacre of Chios. He is not showing the picture of massacre. He is showing aftermath of massacre, where the women and children are showing their suffering through their feeling through their faces, and it deals with the mind. When you see that, you will feel the sorrow. That is romanticism. So, the famous romantic artists are Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, Lord Byron in England, Victor Hugo in France, and Johann Gottfried and Grimm brothers in Germany. Um, Johann Gottfried popularized the true spirit of nation through folk songs, folk poetry, and folk dances. He said the true spirit of German, or of German people, lies in folk dances, folk songs, folk plays, or folk poetry. He says that's where the soul of your country is. That's what you are. So these are the things that should unite you as a nation. That was Johann Gottfried. Also, the Grimm brothers. Grimm brothers, what did they do? They collected the folk stories of the land from various places. They collected the folk stories and they made it a book. And they used to tell the stories to others. They published the book. So they spread these folk stories and um, ignited national feeling through them. Also, Grimm brothers, they were Jacob and Wilhelm. They actually was the front runners for the freedom of press. They participated in freedom movement for freedom of press. They said there should be freedom of expression. So romanticism, a cultural movement, promoted nationalism, focused on emotions, intuitions, and mystical feeling than glorification of science and reason, emerged as an opposition to the age of enlightenment and French cultural domination, and the famous uh, personalities during the Romanticism period is Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, Byron in England, Victor Hugo in France, Johann Gottfried, and Grimm brothers in Germany. Right? Remember those? And what did they do? Romantic poets and writers tried to bring nationalistic feelings through their folk ballads, folk verses, and folk dances. So this is what you have to write when the question is about romanticism, right?